Welcome to Social Psychology, Psych 230. Today we're starting Chapter 8. It's actually Chapter 8A. There's going to be two Chapter 8s, Chapter 8A and then Chapter 8B. So the first Chapter 8 or Chapter 8A is going to be on affiliation and friendship. Okay, and we're going to talk about all this stuff today. Actually, we're not going to get to everything today. So we're going to talk about, first, actually, we're going to define what affiliation is, and then we'll define what a friend is. Okay, we're going to define what a friend is. We'll talk about models of affiliation, or basically theories that try to explain how affiliation, our desire to be with others, how friendships work. And then we'll get into the goals of affiliated behavior, why we socialize with others, okay? Why we want friends, okay? And we'll talk about getting social support, getting information, getting status, exchanging material benefits. Those are the goals. We'll talk about each one of those. We're not going to get through everything today, of course. We're going to get through about half of this. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is a friend? Well, first, let's talk about the affiliation motive. The affiliation motive is the desire to be near others and to have pleasant and affectionate interactions with them. The affiliation motive is basically our desire to be near others, our desire to be with others. We are social. We are born that way. We want to be with other people, okay? And this affiliation motive relates to several things. It relates to basically our desire to, have friends, our desire to have acquaintances, to basically have peers, the desire to have, romantic relationships. That will be a separate chapter, but that's the affiliation motive. It says that we have the desire to be near others and have pleasant and affectionate interactions with them. We want to talk to them. We want to get along with them. We want to be near them, right? We like being around other people. I know some people like that more than others, but yes, we all have this motive. And by the way, if you are the person who just wants to be completely away from everyone and doesn't want anybody around for any reason whatsoever, never, right? Do you ever want to be around anyone? There's probably something wrong with you, okay? You might be depressed. You might have some other issue, some personality disorder, something like that. But normally, naturally, we want to be with other people. Some of us more than others, but we all have a desire to affiliate. And that means to associate with other people in some way. Now let's talk about what a friend is. What is a friend? Here's one definition. A friend is someone with whom we have an affectionate relationship. Affectionate doesn't have to mean hugging and kissing, right? It doesn't have to mean that. Although we do hug our friends, right? We could, some more than others, right? That's kind of affectionate. Sometimes the other could be a kiss on the cheek. Many times there isn't. It depends on the culture. But it's with someone with whom we have some type of affectionate relationship. We like being around them. We talk to them. We may shake hands, or maybe shaking hands is too formal, actually, probably for friends. But like I said, there might be a hug, there might be a kiss on the cheek or something like that. Not a romantic thing. That goes beyond this, that different kind of affection there. But it's actually hard to define a friend, okay, what a friend actually is. So there was a study where people were asked about, what comes to mind when they think of friendship. And these are some of the things that came up again and again. This is what reflects people's personal definitions of friendship, okay? They said that friends participate as equals, that friends are basically equals, people like you on the same status in the similar situations. Your parent is not your equal. So your parent really, probably not your friend. Maybe you can think of them as your friend, but they're not really your equal. Your teacher, well, no, not really. They have authority, they have power over you. They might be friendly, you might be friendly with them, but friends, what people usually say is that friends are people who are equals. They're on the same plane, on the same level usually, right? It's not a power kind of thing, right? Like your boss or your instructor, your parent or something like that, okay? Friends enjoy each other's company. That's something that's very true of friends, right? You like to be around your friends. They make you feel better. You like to be around them when you're bored, when you're stressed, or whenever it is. We enjoy each other's company, okay? And we seek each other out. Friends also help each other in times of need. Yes, your real friends, your true friends will help you when you are having trouble, okay? Maybe they can provide some advice. Maybe they can lend you some money. Maybe they can help you move. Many different things, but friends usually help you out. Some people say that you really know who your friends are when you're in trouble and you need help, right? And sometimes you'll find that people who you thought were your friends are really not your friends and not really willing to help you. Okay. Friends usually are willing to help you out in some way. All right. Um, I have, several friends. As you get older, usually you have less close friends. You can have several friends, but usually some that are very close, like your best friends or things like that. There's about 3 people in my life that are very good friends. I don't see them that much anymore because, we're all grown up and live in different cities. But yeah, I can tell you that, that basically, yes, we do help each other out. When we were growing up, because I've known these people for a long time, yeah, we would trust each other with money. We'd lend each other money. It started out with small amounts, just like, hey man, I need, some money for this or that. Hey, I'll help you out. Here's $5. Just make sure you pay me back or something like that. And then as we got older, we lend each other or would, help each other out with hundreds of dollars. And at one point it was thousands, believe it or not. We even trusted each other that much. Okay. But, hey, friends help each other out. Sometimes it means, providing some money or lending you some money. Not always. Okay. It's not all friends are comfortable doing that. It doesn't mean they're not your friends. Okay. But yeah, they can do a lot for each other. Let you, help you write that paper, help you study for math, let you cheat off of them, all kinds of things. Friends help each other out usually in some way or another. We're going to get into the models of affiliation now. In other words, some theories of affiliation, or models they are theories, but they're a bit different in which they also try to explain, well, theories do try to explain how things work. So a model is a kind of theory, okay? It tries to explain how something works. And when it comes to affiliation, or theories that basically describe how affiliation works, there's 2 kinds of models, or 2 kinds of theories, you could say. There are domain general models these are theories that are kind of general, that say that there's one simple rule, one main thing that explains all affiliation. There's one thing that explains our desire to be with others. And one of those things might be something like feeling good. Friends basically make us feel good. It says that basically explains all affiliation. That's why we have friends. They make us feel good. And there's other theories that are domain-specific models. More specific, they say that there are different types of relationships, different types of affiliation that have different goals at different times and will therefore have different rules for different types of relationships. So those models, those theories are more specific. And we'll talk about those as well. But first, we're going to talk about the domain general models. So the reinforcement affect model. This is one model that tries to explain affiliation. And it's domain general. It tries to explain all affiliation with one simple thing. The reinforcement affect model basically says that we like people that we associate with positive feelings, and we dislike those that we associate with negative feelings. So this model, or theory you could call it, basically says that your friends are probably those that you've shared some good times with, those that have made you feel good. You laughed, you played, you had some good times. And those that are associated with negative feelings, you probably don't like those people. The ones that make you angry, the ones that hurt you, those are probably not your friends. Your boss, guess what? Your boss probably doesn't make you feel very good, right? Especially if you have a difficult job, make you work hard. You probably don't like your boss very much. If your boss is associated with, of course, with work and hardship and just working hard and frustration and things like that. Your parent, right? Well, they punish you. They can also reward you, but they can punish you. There's some negative things associated usually with parents as well as positive. Your friends are probably, your parents are probably not your friends. Friends are people you usually have a good time with. They're associated with positive things. That's what that theory says, okay? And it basically says something like that, that our friends kind of happen, kind of also like by accident. We happen to be here at some party, we had a good time, we met somebody, and now that's a friend. They happen to be there during that good time, or whatever it is, right? Those that are around during, when things are awful, we usually don't associate those people with positive feelings. We usually don't become friends with those people, okay? That's what this model says. There's also social exchange theory. It's also a Actually, no, social exchange theory is a domain-specific model. It's a theory that basically says that there are different rules for different affiliations. Some people we associate with have some rules, and other people they associate with have different rules. There's different types of affiliations, and they have different rules. So social exchange theory is one of these domain-specific models, and it says that we evaluate relationships based on the trading of benefits within the relationship. Okay, so we need to be concerned with things like equity, the costs and benefits in the relationship. Costs and benefits, have to be the same for both people involved in the relationship for there to be equity. So social exchange theory says that basically that different relationships have different rules when it comes to getting benefits and incurring costs. There are some in which we maintain equity, in which things have to be fair and equal, and there are others in which they don't have to be. And we'll talk more about social exchange theory on Thursday, okay, when we get into more of the domain-specific models. Today, it's going to be more about the domain general models, the simple rules. Okay, actually, those are the theories. Let's talk. Those are the models. We'll talk more about the domain-specific ones later when we talk about different types of relationships. But let's get into now the goals of affiliated behavior. What do we seek to get out of this affiliation, out of these friendships, basically, out of socializing with people, associating with people? According to research, there's 4 main goals when it comes to affiliation and friendships. One thing we want from being with other people or associating with other people, whether it's a friendship or an acquaintance or someone like that, is social support. You're more likely to get that from friends. But let's talk about friendships in general to just make it clear. Okay, so one thing we want is social support. So we're going to talk about that, what that is and how we get that, what that does. Okay, and how sometimes we don't seek it because we don't know how. Okay, friends also, and those that we affiliate with also can also provide information. Sometimes we just want to know certain things. They can also provide us with status. Basically, they can make us seem more important, or just make us seem better. Okay, raise our status. And friends also allow us to exchange material benefits. Sometimes, yes, we exchange material benefits. Sometimes, yes, we do lend each other money. Sometimes we borrow things, right? Sometimes we help each other out with material things. Okay, those are the 4 goals, and we're going to talk about each one of those. We're not going to get to everything today. First, we're going to talk about social support. So what is social support? Social support is basically emotional, informational, or material assistance provided by one's social network, right? Support, help that you get from your social network. The people you affiliate with, people, your friends, right? They do things for you. They provide you with support. Okay. And yes, we often turn to others for support when we are under stress, especially when we are under stress. We don't know what's going on, or we're hurt, we're in pain, or whatever it is, we need financial assistance. People can provide support. And that's social support. Most people think of social support as more emotional, but it can also be information. It can also be material. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Social support and health. Here's the thing. There are benefits to actually receiving social support. When you have someone you can talk to, right? A shoulder to cry on, for so to speak, that is social support. You have someone that you can lean on, someone that can make you feel better, right? That's the way we think of social support. And it's actually very important for our health, okay? Research shows that those that receive social support actually live longer, are less likely to have heart attacks. Because when we have people we can lean on, people we can count on, people we can talk to, people we can, a shoulder to cry on, someone who can tell us how things really are, provide information, or someone who can help us out, that actually reduces our stress. It makes us feel better. And then we're less likely to, have heart attacks, and we're more likely to live longer just by reducing our stress. People who receive more social support, those who have, for instance, people who they can really count on, people who really help them out, a shoulder to cry on, someone to talk to, that kind of stuff, they also tend to have less depression. And even when you are depressed, your friends, your family, people you socialize with, they can make you feel less depressed. I remember because when I was in college, when I first started college, I was miserable. Okay. And I actually got very depressed. And, it didn't work out where I first went. And then I ended up transferring, went to another place. And then I was closer to my family. I could get more social support. Okay. And there was one time I was really feeling miserable. And I remember I needed my computer. And for some reason, I had left my computer at my cousin's house. So I went over to my cousin's house just to get my computer so I can get some work done and stuff like that. And those were my only plans. I was feeling miserable, depressed. I was just going to go get my computer and leave. But I show up there to get my computer, and my cousin was there, and so was my other cousin, and so was, and then my other cousin. And all of a sudden, I don't feel so bad. It's like, hey, what's going on? And then before you know it, we're talking and we're hanging out, and before you know it, we're playing computer games, and then I didn't feel bad anymore. And the only thing that happened is I went to pick up my computer, and they were there. And they provided me with social support, with it just, make you feel better. And then I feel so awful. That's what friends do. They make you feel better. Whether they have their own, different people have different ways of making you feel better, but the fact that they're there, right, that you can talk to them, can lean on them, so to speak, and they make you feel better, you're less likely to feel depressed. You can still be depressed and have social support, but you feel less depressed when you have those people around you, the people who care about you and the people that you care about. There's also less drug use because friends make you feel better. You're less likely to rely on drugs to make you feel better. You're less likely to turn to alcohol or marijuana or whatever it is when you are really stressed out, when you feel really awful. That's why people turn to drugs, because they want to escape reality. They want to feel better. Well, your friends, your family, your support group, it may be your church, the people you affiliate with, the people who provide you with social support, can make you feel better. And then you're less likely to turn to drugs. But there are some kind of friends who are more likely to sort of make it more likely that you're going to use drugs because they're drug users, and then they encourage that. That's different. But in general, when we feel better, we're around our friends, we don't need so much of that other stuff. Okay, we don't need so much alcohol, so many drugs, so many of those other unhealthy things, because we already feel better. You can still do it, but you'd be much worse on your own. You're more likely to turn to that stuff. Less stress in general. They make you feel better. That exam, that paper that's making you really stressed out, when you're around your family, your friends, you don't feel so stressed out. You have to do it, but you don't feel so stressed out. Okay. Let's keep going. Social support and threats. Yeah, sometimes we feel threatened. Okay. And we actually want more social support when we're faced with threat. Like, a lot of you probably can't relate to this because you're too young, but 9/11, I believe, was in like 2001. It was a big terrorist attack on the country, on the U.S. Over 3,000 people died when terrorists basically flew, those airplanes into these buildings, into the World Trade Center. And the buildings collapsed. A lot of people were trapped inside. Most people got out, but some didn't. And about 3,000 people died, more than 3,000 people. When that happened, it was a big shock, to the country. People felt scared. They felt threatened. Oh my God, what's happening? Like we're being attacked. And what happened during that time, especially on that day? People called they called their family, right? They called their mom, their dad, they called their friends. They wanted to talk to people. They wanted to feel better. And that's what affiliation does. Your friends, your family, those that you provide you with social support, right? They make you feel better just by talking to them. They make you feel better. They make you feel less scared. You're more likely, you also want more social support when you feel socially isolated. Like if you move away to a different town, or you start college, let's say, and you feel more isolated, you feel alone. You're more likely to call your mom, your dad, right? You're more likely to call your cousins, your friends, and you want to talk to them, and you want to be with them more because you're away, especially when you move away and you have to live somewhere else when you start college, right? you feel more lonely, more miserable, more scared. And what you'll find is you want to talk to your loved ones more. You want to talk to your mom, your dad, you want to talk to your siblings, you want to talk to your cousins, right? You want to talk to your friends. When I first moved away to college, I went very far away, to the East Coast. And, before that, it's like, yeah, my family was there and stuff like that, but I relied more on my friends and things like that. But when I moved away, I was isolated. I felt lonely, and kind of miserable, kind of scared. Here I am on my own, starting something new, and I felt vulnerable. And of course, then you call home, so to speak. You call mom, you call dad. I never talked to my mom on the phone before that. My brothers, I wouldn't do that. We lived in the same home. We didn't need to call each other. We'd see each other every day. But when I did that, now the calls came in, I called them, talked to my mom, talked to my brothers. It was a different kind of dynamic there. And I got to, you know, get that social support from them. I got to relate to them in a different way. I actually grew closer to them, believe it or not. Um, my mom always had problems with growing up, and we actually grew closer when I moved away. But also, um, I when I moved to college, I went to college. My Spanish was not that good because I had actually not much formal education or any formal education in the Spanish language at all. Even though Spanish is actually my first language, that's the language that my mother spoke and my relatives. Um, I went to school, and learned English and stuff. And my English was a lot better than my Spanish. My Spanish was really bad. It still is actually. But when I was away at college, and then I got to call home, and my mom speaks mostly Spanish. Of course, I would speak to my mom in Spanish. I got to practice my Spanish, and my Spanish got a lot better. It's not good, okay? My Spanish is not good. My Spanish is like, kind of, it's like kid Spanish, so to speak. It's not college level, okay? But the point is that because I was far away and I felt more vulnerable, more threatened, so to speak, I needed more social support. Then I called home. I got to talk to my mom in Spanish. I got to talk to my brothers more, and things kind of changed a little bit. I actually get along a lot better with my mom now that I don't live there, right, than before. And that's sometimes what happens when you're all living in the same home. It can be very dysfunctional. And then you move away, you get your own space, and then you get along better. And then you're talking to each other at a distance, but you're also still supporting each other. Maybe you visit once in a while on the holidays, and you get that social support. But you find that you need it more when you feel threatened, when your life is threatened, or when you move away and you feel vulnerable, you feel lonely, isolated. You're going to call upon those people more. Sometimes literally just call them, or you're going to want to visit. Maybe come visit on the weekend. Some people who start college and they live there, but they're nearby. They're only hours away. Sometimes those people will come over during the weekends a lot when they first start college. When you're farther away, you'll call a lot more. Eventually, what happens is as you feel more confident and things are working out, you're adjusting, you'll find that you won't come visit as much. You won't need to call as much. You don't need as much social support because you're going to learn to get it elsewhere. You're going to make friends and you're going to meet other people, and you're going to learn to basically to find that social support elsewhere. You still need your family, but not as much as when you first start. Responses to threat and stress. We've all heard about the fight or flight response. It turns out, according to research, that the fight or flight response is more typical of males. Like when you're under threat, like your life is in danger, something like that, you either have to fight or run away. Okay, it turns out that reaction, it does happen in females as well, but it's stronger in males. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to walk home from school, and there were several times, because I lived in a bad neighborhood, some people were not responsible, and I got chased by dogs sometimes. There are people who didn't take care of their dog, didn't have them in the yard, or the dog got out or something like that, and people weren't to respond. I got chased by dogs several times. One time I was chased by a Rottweiler, a big, huge, scary dog, right? And yeah, I responded with that fight or flight response. I saw that dog running at me, barking at me. I was all by myself walking home from school, and I just responded with this fight or flight response. I didn't even think. I ran to the nearest yard in the neighborhood, and I grabbed the chain link fence at the top and flipped over the other side. It's like I was a gymnast or something, right? I just flipped over on the other side and landed on my feet. It was just amazing. That's the fight or flight response, right? When your life is in danger or you feel that it is, your body will just respond with this heightened sense of this heightened reaction, basically, heightened sense of awareness. It's just like you just know what to do instinctively. And I got into this other person's yard who I didn't know because there was this dog loose on the street. And so I had to get into somebody's yard. The dog should have been in the yard, but instead I got into a yard. So because, the yard was fenced off, right? There was this chain link fence so that I could be safe. That's what happens. Turns out that and it happened to me several times, by the way, that I was chased by dogs. And I always you respond that way. You feel like your life, but you're some kid and there's this big dog, right? That you are afraid is going to kill you. That's what happens. Turns out that response is more typical of males. But in that case, I was on my own. But even when you're in a group, males respond more with a fight or flight response. It's like you're there in a group of people, and then somebody pulls a gun or something like that, or something happens. There's a car heading toward you that's going to crash into you or something like that. What happens is you respond with that fight or flight response, especially males. What do males do? They get the hell out of there instantly. Or what happened one time is I was falling asleep when I was in college, and this girl there, as kind of a joke, decided to scare me. I was just out there in the commons area, and there's a couch there, and I was just there. I was falling asleep, and I probably had dozed off. So this girl decided to come over here and scare me, basically. And I don't know what she did, if she yelled or went rah or something like that, but she scared me. And I jumped into this fight or flight response. And you know what happened? She wound up with a black eye. That's what happened. I didn't mean to hit her or anything like that, but I was falling asleep. I was practically asleep, and she scared the hell out of me. And a fist basically went in her direction is what happened. I didn't even think about it. Now, she forgave me. It was an accident, okay? She shouldn't have done. You should not try to scare someone who's sleeping, okay? You might really scare them, but they might also punch you. They don't, because that's the instinct, right? To either fight or flight, fight or flight, basically. But it turns out that response is more common in males than it is in females. Women are more likely to respond with this tend or befriend kind of thing, according to some research, especially when you're around a group of people and then there's some emergency, something happens. Women are more likely to look around and say, okay, where's my friends? Where are my family? Are they safe? And then you pull close together to be safe. Kind of like the herd that you see out there, like in the wilderness. When you have a bunch of you have the you have out there the grazer, so to speak. You have like a bunch of cows, and then there's a lion, and then they all form a circle, or like that would be the bison, right? Like the buffalo, right? They form a circle, and basically they get the young ones in the middle of the circle, and all the grown-ups are kind of surrounding them. And that's what the females do. The female bison do that. Okay. I think the males might be involved there too, but that's more typical of a female response. That's what females do. If there's an emergency in your home, chances are your mother is basically going to look around and say, where are the kids? And make sure the kids are safe and pull together and move everybody to safety. Whereas your dad is probably just going to run the heck out of there and jump out the window and scram immediately, right? That's the difference. And that's happened in my own household. And that's what I've done. The alarm went off. We thought the house was on fire. In seconds, I was outside. And I forgot that we have kids. I forgot that we have cats, right? My wife responded very differently. She was the tend and befriend thing, right? That's what research says, that males and females actually respond differently in these emergency situations. I'm not saying that women can't respond with fight or flight. They can, but they have also this very strong tendency where males, it's almost always fight or flight. Like when it's an emergency, I mean, I'm hoping I'm not going to be that way anymore, but it surprised me, right? I didn't think about anybody else during that emergency. I got the hell out of the house instantly. It's just, when I feel my life is in danger, I am so quick on my feet. I react instinctively like a cat. I am lightning fast. Just like I responded with that dog that, tried to get me when I was a little kid. I'm the same way as an adult. And what about the kids? What about the cats, right? What about everybody else? I didn't think about that, right? Women are more likely to think about that stuff. That's what research shows. So that men and women respond differently to stress, to threats, especially if it's something that's heightened, like an emergency. More about this, more about social support, social dysfunction. There's some people that respond unhealthy, that have unhealthy ways of responding to things where they just don't know how to get social support, or they do things that lead to less social support when they actually need more, okay? So there are times when we may not want social support because maybe we cannot reciprocate. Sometimes we don't want people to help us. We don't want people to feel sorry for us and help us because we don't want to be a charity case, so to speak. It reflects poorly on us. That's actually very unhealthy, right? When you need help, you should ask for it, okay? Maybe your life is in danger, or maybe you need to borrow some money. Maybe you need some protection. Maybe you've lost your job, and yeah, you do need to ask somebody, right, for some money. Or you lost your job and maybe even lost your home, and you've been kicked out of your apartment, whatever it is, and you need to ask people, hey, can I stay with you? There's some people who don't want to do that, that would rather be on the street or live in their car because they don't want to be a charity case. That's a really bad thing. You need to count on people when you need them. Ask your neighbors, ask your friends, your family, right? Men are especially likely to fall victim to this, that they don't want to seem weak. They don't want to be a charity case. They don't want to seem needy, because a real man's supposed to be strong and be a provider and doesn't need anyone. That's actually very unhealthy. We all need people, and we need to get the social support that we need when we need it, and not worry that it reflects badly on us. But there's a lot of people like that, and not just men, but even women. But men are more likely to not want social support when they need it because they think it reflects poorly on them. But women as well, often, especially when they're used to a certain lifestyle and they lose their jobs or something and they fall on hard times, they'd rather live in their car than go to the shelter where they can get more help, right? Or ask people for help because they don't want to seem like they're needy, right? No, you should, be more humble, so to speak. Don't worry about that stuff. You need help, ask for help. There's people who are willing to help you. It's not always your family. It's not always the people you think, but in this country, we do have services. We all have all kinds of people, all kinds of things where we can get the assistance that we need, okay? Also, when there's potential for embarrassment, sometimes we don't want to ask for help. Task performance evaluation, let me explain that. So you're doing something, let's say, you're working and you're doing something, and you get to a point where you don't know what to do, or you don't know how to do something. And sometimes you don't want to ask for help, because then you kind of seem incompetent. You seem like you don't know what you're doing and you don't deserve to have a job, especially from your boss. And that's social dysfunction as well. That's unhealthy. When you don't know how to do something, you should ask and you should learn, and people can teach you, right? But sometimes people will rather pretend that they know what they're doing and suffer and produce a bad product, a bad paper, a bad exam, or whatever it is, rather than ask for help. And it could just lead to more trouble down the road. It's social dysfunction. In my classes, what I find throughout the whole time I've been teaching is that the people who need the most help are the ones who never ask for it. Those who are failing, those who are doing the worst, they are embarrassed. They never want to ask for help. The people who ask me for help are actually the ones that are not doing that bad, the ones that are actually doing okay. But it's very unhealthy. It is socially dysfunctional to need help and not ask for it. But so many people are that way because they don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to seem incompetent, or they don't want people to think that they're not as smart or whatever it is. They will not ask for help. They rather fail silently without anybody knowing, or fail privately. Okay, you should ask for help if you need it. And some people are very bad at that. More about social dysfunction. Depressed individuals also function in ways that are unhealthy. Depressed individuals focus on negative aspects of their lives. They focus on all the bad stuff. Depressed individuals feel miserable. I've been there. I know how bad it is. You tend to think that everything is awful and that things will never get better, that you're worthless and miserable, life is not worth living and all that stuff. And you're always negative. And even when you're around people, you tend to be very negative and talk about just the bad stuff or how awful you are and how miserable you are. And what happens is you drive people away. People get tired of hearing you complain, of hearing you just feel sorry for yourself. And you bum people out, so to speak. You make them feel worse. And often they will basically, they'll start to leave you, so to speak. They don't want to hang around with you so much because you bring them down. You really need to just, focus on what's better. Okay. Try to look on the positive side. Try to enjoy people's company and focus on the present, focus on the positive thing. Because when you are really negative, sure, sometimes that can get you sympathy, it can get you social support. But if you keep dwelling on the negative stuff, eventually you drive people away because you bring people down. People want to be happy. And if you're making them feel less happy, they might help you for a while, right? To help you feel better. But after a while, they just don't want to feel that way. They don't want you to be bringing them down, and eventually they'll start to, kind of avoid you or ignore you, because you're always, you're the party pooper, so to speak, the one who's bringing everybody down. I know people like that. My own wife is like that. She always talks about the worst stuff. It's like, or every time, let's go to Hawaii. Like, why? We're just gonna get COVID. Like, no, we're not. We're gonna be vaccinated soon. Or like, oh, the kids are gonna get COVID. Like, no, the kids don't really get that sick. Or we can still wear masks. Like, no, and it's always no, no, no. It's always no. There's this problem, that problem. No, that whatever it is. She always brings up the negative stuff. And she has said that she's depressed. And why? I don't, well, several things, I guess, but I also think she doesn't like me or want to be with me. I think that's part of the reason she's not happy. But that's what happens. You get tired of the negativity. You get tired of the no, 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 we can't do this, we can't do that. And eventually you just want to find your own happiness. And you don't want to spend so much time with those people anymore. Lonely people also can cope with isolation in counterproductive ways. Lonely people, what they should do is seek out other people, seek out friends and family, want to be with others so they don't feel so lonely. But often when we feel lonely and we don't cope with things very well, what do? We watch TV, and that keeps us lonely. We sit there in front of the TV by ourselves, or we get on the internet. We're by ourselves. We're not really with people. Or we drink by ourselves. We start doing drugs by ourselves. Rather than seeking people out, we do things that actually keep us lonely. When we are lonely, we need to seek out people. But often when we feel lonely, we do the very things that keep us lonely. And that is socially dysfunctional. Okay, we need to seek out people, seek out our loved ones when we are actually lonely. We need to seek out others. And that's kind of like, I feel like I want to do right now. COVID's been going on for so long, and we've been kind of locked up inside, and a lot of us are lonely and miserable, and we want to get out there. We want to see people. We want to do things. And as things wind down, and they are winding down, and things are getting better, we want to seek these people. We want to see our family. We want to see our friends. And I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to get out there. I am so ready. But my wife is still, no, 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 I don't want to see your family. No, 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 we can't do this. No, we can't do that. We're just going to fight, blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm sick of it. I just want to get out there. But anyway, I'm digressing. More about social support, attachment, and social development. Here's the thing. It's helpful to have good relationships early on. Okay. A secure early relationship, if you had that kind of relationship with your parents early on, that means that you had a trusting, loving relationship. Okay. And what happens when you have these relationships, these good, positive relationships early on, that you're better able to cope with stress later on. When things get difficult, when you're an adult, you're better able to deal with it because you learn to social support. You learn that you can count on people, that you can rely on people. You learn that people will help you, so you're more likely to seek them, and you're more likely to get the help you need. when you have those good early relationships. When you have a bad relationship early on and you can't really trust your parents, you can't trust, right, your parent, your mom, your dad, right? They mistreated you, they abandoned you, you couldn't trust them, or there was too many problems, it was dysfunctional and you don't really like each other. You grow up, and what happens is when you have stresses, when you need people, you don't know how to find them. You don't know how to seek them. You don't know how to make friends. You don't know how to get along with people because you didn't know how to get along early on. And then you have the same types of problems. You still argue, you still fight. You don't know how to get along with people. You don't know how to get the social support you need. You didn't learn it. You learn it from healthy relationships. You learn how to get along with people and how to seek people out, how to rely on people and trust people. But when things are bad early on, you don't trust people. And then it's harder to get social support when you're an adult. Let's keep going. And speaking of social support from parents, right? I mean, you do learn it, how to get it from your parents. Those are your first relationships. Hopefully it's a loving, trusting relationship, but it changes as you get older. Social support from parents, like needing your parents, right? Needing to talk to them, to be with them, needing them to help to feel better. That increasingly dwindles in favor of peer social support after adolescence. As you get older, your friendships become more important. Your friends, and especially as an adolescent and increasingly as an adult, you'll find yourself seeking other people and wanting to be with other people your age. And you count more on their social support. You want their opinion more than that of your friend, than that of your family, I should say. You know that hopefully that your family's in your corner, that they'll help you out, but you want to talk to your friends. You want to talk to your significant others. You want to talk to your peer group, right? You want those people who are like you. You want more social support from them and less from your parents as you get older. You increasingly need those people more and more, and your parents less and less. And that's just part of growing up. If your parents do a good job, what happens is that you need them less and less as you get older. Hopefully you don't abandon them, and you still need them and you still love them, but you'll find yourself spending more time and seeking the support and the time of other people more than your own parents. And that's just the way it's supposed to be. But you should still see your mom, your dad, if you can, still see your siblings and your other people, not forget about them, see them once in a while, and some people more than others. But you find yourself wanting different social support as you get older. You find that you want it more from certain people, and that's just part of growing up. You know, social support from parents is also associated with less negative moods and good grades in college. If you have a good relationship with your parents and you can rely on them, count on them, they support you, and not just financially, but also, you know, with advice, being able to talk to them, a shoulder to cry on, that kind of stuff. Then you feel better, and you're more likely to get good grades in college. If you feel awful, things tend to get worse. You tend to give up, you tend to not be as motivated, and things get worse and worse, and things can really spiral in a negative way. And before you know it, everything's falling apart, right? You need to learn to cope with things and seek the social support that you need, right? So things don't get so bad, okay? People can help you. Another reason so that was the goal of social support. Another reason we associate with others, what we affiliate with others, that we form friendships, for instance, that's one type of affiliation, is because we want information. So the second goal is to get information. We actually want to know things. And that's another reason we associate with people. So other people can provide information for like solving practical problems. Like, how do you fix a flat? Your car has a flat tire. How do you fix that? Or your car's not working. How do you fix that? Guess what? Your neighbors, your siblings, right? Your friends, all kinds of people, maybe more experienced than you are, maybe even older, maybe know how to fix those things. They can show you how, right? You can find that information. You can get that information. It's good if you find it, you know, face to face, so to speak, physically, right? But nowadays we have YouTube, and you can actually find, you know, a lot of information online, and you can learn how to solve certain problems. You can't always trust the people on YouTube, though. Sometimes they don't know what they're talking about. Some of them really do, but a lot of them can give you some very bad advice, okay? But how to solve certain practical problems? How do I fix this? How do I fix that? How do I invest, right? All those things. People can provide that information, and that's sometimes why we want to be around certain people. We just want to know certain things. How do you write a paper? How do you solve this math problem or whatever it is? How do you get a good grade in this class with this instructor? I can't figure him or her out, or whatever it is. Or social reality. How do you know if you're really friendly, if you're really smart, or if you're really good looking? That information, right? It's helpful to know that. How do you really know? Other people will tell you or show you. They'll let you know if you're friendly. They don't even have to tell you. If you're friendly, you'll get along better with them. If you don't get along with people, chances are you're probably not very friendly. You're probably difficult, right? It's one thing if there's one person you don't get along with, but if there's a whole bunch of people you don't get along with, there might be an issue with you. And that's your social reality. Maybe you're not a very nice person. Maybe you're not very friendly. Some people are very friendly. They smile a lot, they're nice and they're easy to get along with. Is that you? You'll find out when you're with people. Are you smart? Well, you can find out by how well you do in class and things like that, but you also find out when you talk to other people, and they think you're smart, or maybe you're doing better than the average person, right? Same thing with whether you're good looking, all that stuff. Friends often, or people will sometimes give it to you straight. When it comes to your parents, by the way, your parents, if they're good parents, they'll tell you, oh, that you're wonderful. Oh, yes, you are, friend. Oh, yes, you're very smart and very good looking, right? Your parents probably believe that, or maybe even if they don't, they probably will tell you that because they're your parents and they love you and they don't want you to feel bad. Your friends are more likely to give it to you straight and tell you where you really stand, okay? Because sometimes we can have a very inflated sense of self, and your friends will tell it to you straight, right? That where you stand. Yeah, maybe you're smart, but hey, man, you're not that smart, right? You're out of your league here, or something like that. Yeah, you look okay, but come on. No, you're not that good looking, right? Or you're not as nice as you think. Other people, right? We learn from them. We learn things from them about ourselves. Okay, this is all information. And when it comes to getting information, one way to get information is through self-disclosure. But it's very simple. If you talk about yourself, other people are likely to tell you about themselves. Self-disclosure is when you share intimate information about yourself. It doesn't have to get too intimate, but it means you share stuff about yourself, you talk about what you like to do, or whatever it is, that you're this major or that major. It doesn't have to get very personal. You don't have to start talking about your relationships or the fact that your mom used to beat you when you were a kid. You can talk about that stuff. That's more intimate information. But self-disclosure is when you share stuff about yourself. And at the beginning, you can share stuff about yourself. And what happens is when you share stuff about yourself, even if it's stuff that's not that important, just a little bit, when you talk about yourself, people are likely to tell you about themselves. Self-disclosure is reciprocated. We feel like when people share things about themselves to us, we feel like we have to share things about ourselves. And that's, by the way, why I share a lot of things about myself, to get you guys to talk and you guys to share and make the class better that way. But because now I'm recording this, we're doing this via Zoom, and I have to record the lecture, I can't do it right now, okay? But yes, self-disclosure is often reciprocated. You want people to talk to you? You want information? Give them information, right? If you talk about yourself, people are likely to tell you about themselves. And as you get a little bit closer and you trust them a little bit more, and the relationship becomes a little bit more meaningful, you can talk about more personal stuff, and then they'll tell you more personal stuff. And that's how it happens. You don't have to talk about very personal stuff at the beginning. There is such a thing as too much information, right? Sharing too much about yourself too early, that can be a turnoff to people, okay? But yes, just talking about yourself, sharing things about yourself, not things that are going to put you in danger, but sharing things about yourself makes you seem more friendly, and people are more likely to talk to you and share things about themselves. And then they're more likely to give you information that you need. How do you do this? How do you do that? Whatever it is. People who disclose more about themselves are also more likable. Those who share more things about themselves and are more open and more honest, we like those people more than those people who don't say anything, and those people who are not honest, those people who do not open up. Women are generally more self-disclosing than men. Women are more likely to talk about themselves than men. They're more likely to share. And in general, I can tell you that research does support what that should lead to. Yes, that women are more likable than men. Women are thought of as being nicer than men in general. They're usually more likable than men. Men are meaner. Men are usually worse on average. That doesn't mean that men can't be nice. A lot of them are. It doesn't mean that women can't be mean. They can be. They can be awful. Everyone can be to some extent sometimes. But on average, women talk about themselves more than men. They open up more than men. They share things about themselves more than men. And because of that, we like them more. And if you have friends, by the way, you're more likely to get self-disclosure from women than you are from your female friends than you are from your male friends. Male friends tend to talk about a lot of shallow stuff. Stuff doesn't really matter very much about their cars and sports and all kinds of things. Women tend to talk more about relationships and feelings, stuff like that. They talk about more, they self-disclose more, okay? And it's easier for other people to open up to you when you open up to them. And then you like them more. They like you more. Getting information, uncertainty. What about when you're uncertain? You want information and there's something you're not sure about. Uncertainty increases the desire to affiliate. When there's something you don't know, you actually want to seek out people more. Okay? Like, let's say you're taking a certain class and you're not even sure what the class is about, let alone how you're going to do well in that class. You'll find yourself asking, people questions like other classmates. It's like, hey, man, how do I do this thing? I'm supposed to do this portfolio thing. What the heck is that about? It's like, how do I do well in this class or whatever it is when you're not sure? Maybe it's your first math class or physics class or something like that. Whenever you don't know, you usually want to talk to people and find out what's going on. And it doesn't have to be about class. It could be about something else. Maybe you don't know about what you should wear to the party, right? Going to a certain kind of party. Hey, what kind of party is it? Like, what's the dress code and stuff like that? There's different dress codes for different types of parties and different types of situations that you can go to party, so to speak, or to hang out. But yes, when you don't know, you usually want to talk to people, and that means you want to socialize with people, affiliate with them, relate to them in some way, so you can get information. Uncertainty also increases social comparisons. When we don't know certain things, we compare ourselves. Should I be afraid, right? Is this something I should be afraid of? Am I doing the right thing? You don't know, right? So you often compare yourself with people, right? Maybe there's a loud noise. Maybe you're in a certain neighborhood and you hear some loud noises, sound like gunshots. Should you be afraid? You look around you, no one seems scared. So maybe you shouldn't be scared either. Yeah, maybe it's a bad neighborhood, but people are used to it and they think it's no big deal. Other neighborhoods, you hear gunshots and people get scared. They're not used to it. And if they're scared, you're more likely to be scared. If they seem like they're doing okay, you're more likely to calm down and not get so scared. Am I doing the right thing, right? Should I be in line here, right? What's the right way to approach this? Is this how I study? Is this how I write this paper? When you don't know, right, you're more likely to compare yourself to what other people are doing. You're more likely to want to know what other people are doing and compare what you're doing. More about uncertainty. When you are uncertain, when you don't know, you're more likely to want to associate with people who are similar. Okay, usually you want information from people who are similar. Like if you're a teenager and you don't know how to dress for the party or what you should be wearing, what the current fashion is, right? You want to know from other teens. Those are the people who are going to be able to tell you what's fashionable, right? People who are young. Mom and dad, guess what? They grew up at a different time. They're probably out of touch. They probably don't know. They're going to give you some very bad advice. Tell you the truth, I don't even know what the heck is fashionable. I'm all grown up. I don't really care what's fashionable. I will wear what I want to wear, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm playing basketball, if I'm going on a hike or I'm doing something else, I don't follow fashion. But those that are younger, especially teenagers, really care a lot about their looks and about what they should wear. And if you don't know how you should look, what hairstyles are in, what kind of clothes are in, well, you want to get that information from people who are like you, people who are similar. Even ethnicity matters. Hey, Black people, guess what? You want to know what's cool with other Black people, white people with white people. Sometimes, of course, things can be across ethnicities, but sometimes styles differ depending on the ethnicity or depending what culture or what country you're in. It can be very, very different. Even your social class. If you're rich, you tend to dress differently than if you're poor. So if you're rich, you probably don't want the opinion of someone who's poor because they're not like you. And they're probably not going to give you the right advice. When the issue is highly important, we'll want to get the information from whoever can give it to us. In a life and death situation where our life is in danger, it doesn't matter whether it's a teenager, an adult there, an older person. It's like whoever can give us the information. It's like my life is in danger here. I could be in danger. I might die if I don't get this information, right? Whoever's there, right? Where the hell am I? Or maybe you're lost, right? Hey, whoever. It might be a teenager, a kid maybe can't provide good information, but it might be an adult, might be an older person. It's like whoever, doesn't matter. It could be someone who's homeless. Like, where the hell am I? I'm kind of lost here. Maybe you're in a rough neighborhood. I don't know. And you just want that information. That might not be a life and death situation. Sometimes people think they're in a life and death situation just because they're in a rough neighborhood. And it's really just that they're prejudiced. They just don't relate well to the people there. They don't trust them, or they're not really used to those people. But if your life is in danger, it's like whoever can give you the information, that is who you're going to rely on. It doesn't matter who it is. Okay. The next part is about social comparisons, but we're about halfway. So I'm going to stop there. So I'm going to stop recording.